Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him."
In the opening scene, it is still dark. The Gospel writers do not rush us into Easter. Mary sees that the stone blocking Jesus' tomb has been rolled away. Something has happened. This she knows for sure, but what it is she cannot yet say. They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him. Easter opens with a puzzle. With Jesus' friends and followers, we must edge our way toward the truth. Truth is something precious. God will pull back the curtains on truth for us, but often we must wait for truth to emerge. The most important truth for our lives begins in mystery. On Easter morning, while it is still dark, we wait for the truth of our future to become clear. God of mystery, we have made it here on Easter morning, seeking to find you. We know the Easter story, yet we do not always understand what is happening. When your truth is not yet clear for us, give us courage to keep seeking that truth. So may our hearts learn to sing your Easter promise.
Jesus Christ is risen today. Hallelujah. On triumphant holy day. Hallelujah. Blood runs upon the cross. Hallelujah. Suffer to redeem our loss. Hymns of praise and let us sing. Hallelujah. Unto Christ our risen King. Hallelujah. Who endured the cross and grave. Hallelujah. Sinners to redeem and save.
So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple who had reached the tomb first also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying.
Just like a pair of athletes on the same team, Peter and John compete with each other to find out the truth first. At least we assume it's John with Peter. This storyteller does like puzzles. This other disciple runs the fastest. He wins the race, as if it's a race for disciples to show our loyalty to Jesus. But he cannot find the courage to do anything more than peek into the empty tomb. Do we blame him? Few of us look into a grave eagerly. Then Peter arrives, a little out of breath, and edges past John. Is he impatient, determined not to lose his courage, eager to show up his friend? Peter enters the tomb, sees the bandages rolled up, tossed aside. Then John has to squeeze in beside him. He doesn't want Peter to know something he doesn't know, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand that Jesus must rise from the dead. The puzzle continues. What did John believe if they did not understand that Jesus would rise from the dead? What we believe and what we understand are not exactly the same thing when it comes to Easter. There will always be a tension between what we believe and what we can understand. What we believe, we take on trust because we cannot fully explain it. We cannot fully explain Easter morning. So there will always be a mystery to draw us to the empty tomb one more time, and we have to take it on trust that the world, our world, was changed that day. We have to take it on trust that God's love is afoot in our lives once again. God of mystery, we confess that faith doesn't come easy every Easter. We know the Easter story, but we do not understand how things happened as that day dawned. Help us trust the faith of those who first believed. Ease our doubts and fill our hearts with faith that blossoms in hope as we sing.
Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them that he had said these things to her.
The picture of Mary weeping in the garden is very moving. All of us who have been touched by grief can feel what she's going through. The sorrow, the confusion, the feeling of despair. She sees Jesus and she doesn't even recognize him. So often grief is disorienting. We can't remember things. A familiar name just disappears from our lips. In her grief and uncertainty, Mary starts to argue with the gardener. Her grief edges into anger that the body of her beloved Jesus has disappeared. "Sir, tell me where you've laid him. I will take him away." She's saying, "He belongs to me. I want him back." Mary's grief and loss echo at the heart of John's Easter story. She speaks of our grief and loss, and of our anxiety. which can edge into anger when we are at a loss for words, when we're sad or anxious, when it's hard to see any joy on the horizon. We can only edge into Easter. In one sense, this year we are edging into Easter. The weeks and months of pandemic drag on. Threats from new variants are alarming, and we can't be sure what hope we can put in vaccines. Some feel anxious because further lockdowns cause their own kinds of loss and grief. None of us is sure what next Easter will look like. But in truth, we never know exactly what comes next. And so we have to take it on trust that Easter will come again, with its puzzles and its promise. We have to take it on trust that our future is in God's hands. We have to take it on trust that the love which changed the world that first Easter will continue to shape and reshape our world. For just at the most anxious moment in the story, Jesus speaks. Mary, he calls her name. How do you hear it? Mary, don't you recognize me? Mary, don't be so sad, I'm here with you. Come on, Mary, it's me, Jesus. We could hear that name said in a dozen different ways, depending on how we have edged into this Easter morning. Hear that name spoken as a gift of Jesus' love for Mary, a gift of their deep friendship. For friendship embraces all those anxious moments we are facing just now. Friendship will bring tenderness and challenge into your lives, to call out the best in us. The risen Christ edges into our lives in friendship, to receive us as we are in our grief and uncertainty, in our hope and commitment, to call out the best in us, to assure us we can take it on trust that Christ is risen, and that we can face our future unafraid. It is in the hands of the risen Lord. So now imagine yourself in that garden. Listen as Jesus speaks your name. How will he say it? With a smile, in tenderness, with a challenge. Jesus speaks our names to reassure us, to encourage us, to dare us to be his witnesses. Hear him speak your name today in friendship, as we proclaim with Mary, I have seen the Lord.
Amen, we praise your name, O God. Amen, we praise your name, O God. Amen, 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 amen. Amen, we praise your name, O God. Amen, we praise your name, O God. Amen, we praise your name, O God. Amen, 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 amen. Amen, we praise your name, O God.
God of mystery, we know the Easter story and we are glad to be caught up in its joy. You call each of us by name because you love us. So may we live our love for you gladly as we sing with Easter joy.